correctly with the correct amount.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com.
Welcome to Me and Steve Talk RPGs, a podcast where me and my friend Steve try and help you get the most out of your role-playing game experience.
Welcome back to Me and Steve Talk RPGs. I'm here with my friend Steve.
Hi, Steve.
And we're going to talk some RPGs. But before we get into that, we're going to talk some Eberron Renewed.
Eberron Renewed. What's Eberron Renewed, Steve? I've never heard of Eberron Renewed. Of course, I'm lying through my teeth, but...
Well, Eberron Renewed is a fantastic podcast on the D20 Radio Network.
That it is. Eberron Renewed, as you might guess from the title, is based around the Eberron campaign setting, originally developed for Dungeons & Dragons. Now, as we record, their most recent episode is episode 46 of Campaign 3. Campaign 2 went 200 and some episodes. Campaign 1 went somewhere in that vicinity. I know Campaign 1 was 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Campaign 2 was Genesis. I had heard that Campaign 3 was going to be an original system. I don't know if that's the case because I have gotten very behind on my podcast listening. As much as I love Eberron and Eric and Philip and Jeff and the whole rest of the cast there at Eberron Renewed are really, really cool people, I just haven't gotten back to them in a while. But I can tell you, I listened to all of Campaign 1 and a good part of Campaign 2, and it was excellent. Very entertaining, very well put together. And actually, that was how I found the D20 Radio Network many, many, many moons ago.
Yeah.
So check them out. Check out, I think the website is under construction for the network, but there'll be a link in our show notes to their Discord as well as our own. And you can check out, there's a bunch of other shows and stuff on the network you can check out if you like. You know, you hear us mention them pretty much every episode. But yeah, a lot of good people, a lot of good shows.
Absolutely.
But check out Eberron Renewed and the rest of the network. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Great stuff happening over at Eberron Renewed. Well, it was presented to me from someone I'm currently in a game with, and they're just sort of a newer listener, and they wanted to know if we've ever talked, but in the sense of sabotage or proud metagaming. And told a little story, you know, some information about a player that they had played with, that they were having problems with them metagaming, and it was like in a boastful way and then in a sabotaging way.
yeah, so
That's not fun, right?
Yeah. Well, you sent me the text of a Discord message that was sent to you, and I have no idea who this person is, and the way you sent it doesn't tell me anything. So I don't know this person at all. I doubt I've ever met them anyway. But anyhow, to make it very, very short for our listeners, essentially you have the message you sent me describes one player telling another player that they are going to do thing X in the game, regardless of circumstance, if it is ever available to their character because of character advancement. Doesn't matter to them if it makes any sense in the context of the story, the narrative, you know, game situation, whatever. And then also go on to say that they have read modules that the GM is running for them and have used that to their advantage and seem to be pleased with themselves with such activity. Is that fair?
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. Give me 2 seconds. I'm sorry. My computer is locking up. Just give me 2 seconds. I got to figure this out.
All right.
All right. Let's see if that's better.
All right.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all right. Yeah, I thought you were cutting out and freezing a little bit, but sometimes it's just on my end, not all the way through Discord.
Well, remember yesterday when I said I didn't have internet? It's still not quite right. But it's the weekend, and we're just barely working. So I'm just going to turn my camera off, unfortunately. But that'll help me not freeze and stutter so much.
Alrighty.
All right. So, where were we? I'm so sorry.
I had kind of summarized the comment you sent.
Oh, yeah. So, from my perspective, I've never interacted with somebody like that. But I don't know. I'm not like that myself, where I don't necessarily care. I like to be surprised by games, I guess is the way I want to put it.
See, I'm very much in the same camp. Now, I can't say I'm sure over the course of all the time I've spent gaming, there have been things I've done because Steve the player knew things that the character might not, but I would like to think I've always tried to do it in a way that made narrative sense. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
like maybe it's justification, and I'm willing to admit that I've probably justified some actions that, you know, in the grand scheme of things weren't the greatest thing ever. But I think there's a difference between going, oh boy, that thing is really attractive in a meta sense. How can I make it happen along with the story, as opposed to I'm doing this whether the story works or not.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know. I'm not that type of player. I really find myself wanting to do things. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not a metagaming like. I read as little as possible of the books that I want to play.
Well,
Right. And
see,
9 times out of 10, yeah. Go ahead.
no, I was going to say, like, you know me, I am a chronic overthinker.
Oh
Uh,
yes.
and so it's hard for me sometimes to, I don't want to say let go and make the suboptimal choice, but like sometimes it has to be a conscious decision. And I know you've been at the table with me where I made decisions that as a player I knew were not going to work,
Right.
but I knew that that knowledge was not knowledge that the character possessed, so I did it anyway.
Exactly.
And so like I guess this is two sides to the meta coin, and to a certain point, a lot the behavior that I feel like is being described in the message that you got. I look, I'm just going to say it the way it comes to mind. This is the video game mentality that I kind of reference sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
That this is what I'm thinking of when I see that. Maybe it's a better way to say it, right? Like I'm playing to win. I'm trying to make the best character I can. Well, okay,
Yeah. What is that game? And especially in something like Triangle Agency. Because, like,
see, I'm not familiar with the engine, but
uh, I just don't imagine that. I don't know. I could be wrong. I haven't delved into it yet. I haven't got a chance to play it. But from what I understand, I don't think it's like ultra combat heavy. Although, if it's for the sake of chaos, because that game kind of is chaos,
mm-hmm.
that could. But yeah, I don't know. I've never done any. Like I said, I'm very much a person that likes to read. I'll read everything that I need to for making a character. I won't read any fluff aside from like background and world stuff, but I'm not going to read. Yeah, that's just not the type of player I am. I just don't. I'm very much a narrative. I just want to have my character. Does it fall within the world? Yes, okay, perfect. I've made my thing. Um, and that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, like I like to be surprised. Sometimes I will poke the thing with a stick to see what happens, and sometimes, admittedly, okay, I'll tell a minor story on myself here. Um, at Gamer Nation Con this year, I played in a 3-part Delta Green adventure run by Daryl, who, if you're listening to things in sequential order, was on the last episode. Nick and Robert, his co-hosts on the How We Roll podcast, they each ran one session of this game, and in I believe it was the second session, which was run by Robert, we had the PCs had to break into this secret sub basement research area of some sort of military base to steal something. Okay, so we successfully break in. we get followed in shortly after we arrive by Deep Ones, who, long story, but they're basically pissed at the research people because they've been doing things. So as we're going to leave, and this is kind of almost as the session is wrapping up, I looked at Robert and I went, Robert, can I chaos monkey you for a minute? And he went, okay. I said, and at this point, it had kind of become apparent that the Deep Ones weren't after us. They were after the research facility people. I said, I want to go open the elevator for them that went up to the rest of the base. He just looked at me and I said, that's all. Just open it for them. And then we're going to leave the way we came, which we came in through underwater, blah, blah, blah. And so, yes, that was a bit of a meta thing.
Yeah.
But at the same point, that's covering our tracks that we were there.
Right. Yeah, it's meta, but it makes sense.
And it was more meta amusing than anything else. But
yeah, you're not. But I think the moral of this story is you're not going out of the way to be actively disruptive to the game.
Right. That was just a kind of, okay, now you get to describe a scene of chaos if you want to, or just there's explosions and smoke and screaming, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But like, also, the only thing gained was covering up the actions of the party, probably rather effectively, and covering our escape. But it wasn't like, I don't know. I kind of felt bad about it because I don't know that it was 100% in character, but you know what I mean? Like, and so, like, I say that to say, look, I'm not a perfect gamer. I don't know that a perfect gamer exists. I've played with people that are definitely better than me, but
yeah, I've made my mistakes, and definitely, when I was younger, did petty things, and I'm sure I've done that. But yeah, I don't know. Now that I'm like older and used to gaming, I just can't. That's just not in my repertoire. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, and I mean, I guess I knowing the conversations I've had with a lot of the people that I know listen to this podcast, I'm going to say the vast majority of our listeners are going to go, oh no, that behavior's not okay.
Right.
And I would tend to echo that sentiment.
Yeah.
I guess, though, go ahead.
Well, I guess, though, then the question is, how do you approach it with somebody and be like, hey, man, that's not cool.
Right. That's the bigger question.
Do you just go, hey, man, that's not cool?
I mean,
I wouldn't be afraid to. You got to do it with a particular tone, but yeah, I wouldn't want to. I don't know.
Yeah, I think, and yeah. So I mean, I think it's a tough thing to bring up, but I think basically, like, look, I'm sorry, but these things have been brought to my attention, and
yeah,
and especially in the context of the information that I got from you, it sounds like this circumstance was brought to the attention by another player, that the GM was not party to this individual telling them anything.
And that's what it seems like to me as well, is that another player came to them and was like, hey, they're doing this, and told me that they're doing this. And in which case, I don't know, you sort of go, hey, I'm not cool with this. So if anybody's, I don't know if you just pull the person aside or you make an announcement at the table. Is my question. Is like, I wouldn't even be afraid to be like, hey man, I'm not cool with this at the table, and be like, look, I don't know that I'm cool with, if you guys are metagaming, that's not something I'm into. Just so you're not accusing one person if this is the first time experience. Now, if you've been dealing with this for, it's going on, then you can, like, if you've heard the same story multiple times and you've sort of brought it up, or even not, but if you've heard the story multiple times, then I wouldn't be afraid to go to somebody and be like, hey, I've heard this. Like, are you doing this? Because it kind of seems that way. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, I feel like, maybe having a private conversation with the individual and saying, hey, look, I've heard this, if that's what you're doing, I don't really think that's cool, and it would appear that your co-players don't think it's cool either, at least some of them.
Yeah.
But also, like you brought up, bringing it up in the at the table, and just saying, hey, this metagaming bit, I'm sure you've all heard of it, and just, using outside information or information that that your character wouldn't
Right. See, and
to
that's
gain an
yeah.
advantage, I guess is the thing, right? Like, how do you
Yeah.
define gaining an advantage? And that to
And in
me is
most
the
games
thing,
that
is
I
like,
go into, yeah, the funny thing is, and I just had this realization in most games I go into, I don't even know what my character can do.
well, but like,
Like I think back to like Exalted, and I'm like, huh, I don't even know what all I can do. Like I don't even know the extent of the powers that I have, let alone like
yeah,
other
yeah,
people's
like,
powers or like.
yeah,
I don't,
I don't know. Like, I mean, and in this case, it sounds like this is, how do as far as my opinion, this is the worst kind of metagaming.
yeah,
This is, and I'm going to frame this in a 5e context, but this is the person who has gone on all the forums and the Reddits and the this and the that's and the blah blah blahs, and has the perfect build mapped out of, I'm going to take this many levels of this, and then this many, and then I'm going to take this option and this many levels of this and that subclass and this and this and this and this, and like,
yeah,
okay, that is exactly how I used to build my characters for raiding in World of Warcraft.
yeah, exactly. That's not what I'm looking for.
That's
And that's not the gaming that I want to participate in either.
right. And like, I don't know. Based on what I know of I mean, God, to me that's just not why I play tabletop role playing games.
No. No,
And
if I played listen, if I wanted to play like that, I'd play miniature war games. A game for. You want to roll big dice, roll big dice. And if you want to play something that's a mix between the two, play something that's mixed between the two. But that's not Dungeons and Dragons.
but I will say, I think the way Dungeons and Dragons is structured,
I
it
know, but
it's convenient to that play style.
yeah, it is convenient to that particular play style. So maybe that's, just again goes back to the I'm over it.
And like I said, in my head, this is when I wonder about, does a generation that came to tabletop RPGs from video games have a different outlook than like I do, where, like, well, Final Fantasy is kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, but it's on the Nintendo.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that was my introduction to quote unquote CRPGs.
Right. That's true.
I mean, okay, yeah, I think there was Pools of Radiance or something, which was a Dungeons and Dragons game on the computer.
Yeah.
But like,
I get it. It's that was your first experience, and yeah, it's true. I agree with you. I think
you
that's
know,
absolutely on the mark.
and I'm not trying to, as much as playing that way, in my opinion, is wrong. I guess if your whole table wants to play that way, but then to me,
If the whole table doesn't want to play that way, then that player is unfortunately out of place. And
yeah,
it's up to that player then to make a decision. Do I change how I play or do I move on?
well,
Because that table's not going to, well, in my opinion, if you're bringing it up to them, the table's not going to tolerate that any longer. Like me as a GM, I would be like, what? Like, I'm not going to take this.
well, I think then too, how do I want to say this? This also brings into, and I think this became really apparent in the later stages of like 3.5 D&D, the the system mastery almost becomes a gatekeeping thing,
Yes.
because to have the system mastery, to be able to keep up with these people at the table who can do all these things, because they know that, like, look, I've said it before, and I don't know if you and I have had this express conversation, but I refuse to actively do anything with Reddit. And it's not because I have anything against Reddit as what it is. It is that with my brain structure, my attention span, whatever, I would end up living on Reddit, and I don't want to do that. You
I
know,
have realized that I like to default to Reddit more than Google sometimes.
I'm
But
not saying there isn't good information there, but like I have
oh yeah, no, I
also
feel you.
I have
I,
acknowledged that Reddit is a very big hole that I would fall into and it would swallow me. And
oh yeah,
so
absolutely.
I don't pursue those conversations and like I said, but also okay, if we're playing a game to tell a story, I feel like narrative creativity and story based action reaction, or is the Jim Davies line that I quote all the time on the podcast about playing the world, not your character sheet. That is much more natural to most brains than how can I statistically manipulate all the probabilities that I can put together to make a thing happen. And so I think if you're playing that way, like for example, and I'm not saying this to pick on anyone, but in you in particular, I feel like we've played together enough that my math skills at the table are more advanced than yours. I think that's a fair statement to make.
Easily, easily.
If we're playing in a game of meta, min max, whatever, I'm going to pull more out of my, even if the same person built both our characters and so they're built at the same level, I'm going to pull more advantage probably just because of how my brain works or can work than you are, just because I can crunch numbers more efficiently than you can.
Absolutely.
Okay, and I'm not saying that to say that I'm a better player than you, because to me
No,
that's tactical wargaming,
tool
that's
set.
board games.
Yeah,
And and I'm not trying to say that I'd be better at board games than you, because I can also like hyper tunnel vision and miss the big thing that's going on, right next to me. So,
right.
but like I feel like if you're trying to game this way, this metagame way, it can create a imbalance between the players at the table, which I don't think is a good thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know, man. It's it can absolutely make a balance. Like just because our skill sets are different doesn't mean that that upsets the table near as much as this would upset the table. It's
No,
like
no.
yeah.
Because I fully think you're better at coming up with storylines as a GM than I am.
Mm,
I feel like I'm really good at rolling with what the players deal to me, and I have a thing and I can adapt it well. But I think you're
yeah.
better at having the idea in the first place.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. I think yeah, I agree with you. I think you're good with the rolling with what happens next and making decisions on the fly. I've been trying to work on that myself, so,
You know,
but
and that's the thing. We're all different people, but I feel like, and it may be where I was saying it's more natural for people to narratively improvise. Maybe that's not the thing, but I don't feel like there's in a way I'm saying this as someone who I feel like my analytical side is stronger than my narrative side.
right.
Um, so, but what I'm saying is I feel like it's easier for a person who's less strong narratively
Right.
to feel like an equal participant than someone who is statistically not as strong, or not as strong with like statistics. You know what I mean? Does that
Right.
make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can see where you're coming from. I still also don't think it's right. Like I agree with you on that. Someone who, it's easy to get into the how can I just maximize the most out of this character? And it's one thing when you're sort of keeping to your character, but it's another when you're going, how can I do this and completely destroy the narrative as it stands?
Yeah. And I know the other thing, and I've been there at times where I've been at a table and I'm going, boy, why can't my character keep up with this other character? You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like
the numbers
man,
aren't.
there's no way I can shine in a way that this character shines. And I'm not saying even at the same thing, you know, and I don't know. And this is where I wonder about a lot of things sometimes, but like I don't know. I just feel like this level of metal gaming isn't cool. And like I intentionally a lot of times this is why, yeah, I'm sure listeners have heard me say I prefer to be GM'd by someone using a GM screen
Yeah,
because I then can't see their dice. I can't accidentally do the reverse math in my head.
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
the secret's still there.
right. And uh, for those out there that are going, but then how do you know the DM's not cheating? I will say this
Because I
from my
believe
own
Santa
experience.
Claus is real.
But Steve, I will say this, and having had conversations with many people who have spent even more time and way much more time GMing than I have, probably at least 90% of the time, if a GM is fudging rolls, it's in the player's advantage.
Oh, absolutely. Every single time I talk to somebody who has GM'd any experience, any amount of time is going, oh, well, yeah, I'm always trying to favor it in the way of the players.
Right, because eh, on some grand level, we have a story we want to tell. If we kill the players, we have no more story.
Right. And you,
Or not the players, but the player characters. You know what I mean?
well, yes, both, actually.
Well, technically, yes, but there are legal ramifications to one and not the other.
Well, but anyways, yeah, no, seriously, I completely believe in rolling behind a tray. I think it's a great way to roll dice. And oftentimes when I don't roll behind a tray, it's because the are out of my dice and the
I'm
roll
sorry?
doesn't actually. So, oftentimes when I don't roll out of a tray or behind my screen, I'm looking for like a yes or no answer out of my dice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all. Like, is this happening or not? Yeah. Okay, cool. And we're moving
Right.
on.
Right. Or look, most of us have been there where the GM looks up at you and goes, how many hit points do you have? And I guarantee you 90% of the time, the GM has rolled a number that they're 90% sure is more than you have. And they're going to tell you if you say, oh, I have 17 hit points, they're going to sigh, go 15. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Absolutely.
even though they may have rolled 32.
It
That
doesn't,
being
literally
said,
doesn't matter.
I'm of the mind as a player, usually I don't mind. Like I get that the dice do things that you weren't planning, and to me that's the element of what happened when I poked it with a stick. You know what I'm saying? But that's my opinion. That's my feelings on it. I don't know.
I am with you there. My internet is just starting to hate me something fierce right now. So, um, but yeah, I'm with you on that, man. And I think we need to move into game of the week.
Woohoo! Game of the week.
Game of the week. Game of the week.
So, I'm very sorry about that. But I had a game here. Like I said, things are frozen on my end. So if you want to go for it.
All right. So I found something this week that really looks interesting, and it's something I had not heard of. Actually been out for almost 3 years. Oh yeah. Let me do the linky link thing.
Linky links.
So this is a game called Backwater. It's a Southern Gothic horror tabletop role playing game.
Ooh.
And it is also post-apocalyptic, or maybe post-apocalyptic. I'm not 100% sure exactly how they describe it there, but this is long after the end descended upon the old world. Humanity started to rebuild itself, albeit wretched and forlorn. Survivors salvaged what they could could of government in the form of the American lands. They rebuilt roads, though fewer in number and inferior quality, reclaimed skeletons of buildings, and this particular book is set based around the general New Orleans region, which is a area rich in things to mess with as a gamer, right? Like,
Oh, absolutely.
now,
Absolutely.
this also, they have done some expansions for this. There's a companion game called Back Roads, which is in the same setting, set more up in the Midwest St. Louis area. There are
Ooh.
tons and tons of little supplements, adventures. It is an original game system that claims it uses a D20 for everything except damage, designed to be intuitive and streamlined. It says 4 attributes. I don't know. I did see there's a quick start, although I literally just found this game, I think last night, so I haven't gone and found the quick start and downloaded that to look at that. But topically, it feels like a really cool playground. PDF is currently $20. The core book is 220 pages, it claims. Also, there's some information, just in case anyone's curious. They appear to have paid a lot of attention to sensitive issues, be it racism, disability and deformity, disfigurement, whatever. There's a section about, sections about that in the listing. So, it doesn't appear that this is, because let's be honest, there's some potentially very sensitive topics that could
Absolutely.
easily
Yeah.
come out of that genre setting, etc. So
I
it would,
appreciate some extra care taken to that. So
like I said, now
that's cool.
I'm again just at this point just going based solely off the drive-through listing, but like I said, this looks like a really fun playground.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. So yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure
it's
that
called
would be a
Backwater.
really fun playground. Backwater. All right.
Yep.
All right. I have one. We've talked about. You remember a million years ago we tried to get a Jurassic Park game going?
Yes.
So I may have a new engine for us to run Jurassic Park in. It is called Raptor Ruckus. It is launching on Kickstarter. It's by Snackback Game Studios. It is a Morkborg OSR type game.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, their inspiration is Jurassic Park, Lake Placid, Anaconda, in The Lost World, Land of the Lost, Jaws. You got my attention.
Ghost in the Darkness. Oh.
Yeah. And the books look so good. And it's an so here's what happened. Brian Collin posted on his Facebook, and me being the old man that I am, I clicked on the EN World link, and then I read the EN World article. So now I'm looking at a Kickstarter link.
Egg?
I think it was an Egg Emperor article. You were correct.
Yeah, actually, he often writes those articles for EN World.
Yeah, but it was a whole interview with author, and this seems really cool. And this seems awesome, and would like to know more very, very soon. Very, very soon. But yeah, Raptor Ruckus.
Oh gosh, damn it! I don't want to, but I do.
I just hit that little notify me when launch. It'll tell me when it launches. I'll make a decision when that happens.
Right. But oh god, because let's be honest, I really enjoy the Jurassic Park franchise. It's no secret to listeners. Lake Placid is a movie that I love. Jaws is an amazing movie. Congo, Ghost in the Darkness. These are. Oh man, it's just so many. And Morkborg is fun.
And that's what I'm saying. How fast is Morkborg? How many people can you murder with dinosaurs? How fantastic is that?
Right. Oh man.
It's perfect, and I'm jealous that I didn't think of it sooner.
Yeah,
But no, I'm legit. That is awesome and brilliant, and I
and
love
for
that.
you to go to Kickstarter for a game of the week is quite rare. So that says
Uh
something
huh.
else.
It's been a minute since I've been like Kickstarter.
Oh wait, I see. On the one book I see in the display, I see a name that I recognize as someone that just signed on to work with Brian from Bassgrim.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
That John Baltasinger or whatever his name is on
Absolutely.
the Kickstarter page on that containment breach something or other book. I can see the start of his name.
Oh, nice. Well, that's interesting. Well, that would explain why he posted it up on Facebook, because I was like, oh, hey.
But yeah,
But
I know John's working with him.
that's cool. Good stuff. And as always, links to everything are in the show notes. Discord, Patreon, YouTube. You can watch us on YouTube now, along with any podcatchers. And as
Well,
always,
not so much watch. You can listen.
well, you could watch something.
Yeah, well, it's just a static image of the logo, but you can hear our wonderful voices.
Well, so you can catch it along with any podcatcher, almost any podcatcher. I'm sure there's probably half a dozen at this point that we're not on, but who knows?
Yep.
And as always, we want to remind everyone to be kind to one another and get out there and play some RPGs.
Yep. Take care, y'all.
Intro and outro music by the band 12 Noon. You can email us at meandsteverpg@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter and RPGs. Find us on Facebook at Me and Steve RPG Podcast. On Discord at Me and Steve RPGs. And as always, all of these links are in the show notes. Thank you, and be kind to one another.
How much for the cigar?
Cigar, $20, dog. You gotta go down the street to the store and buy that.
Well, that's where the internet is your friend because time zone fuckery.